It was supposed to be a celebration of empowerment, a mission to inspire generations and break barriers. Instead, it became the internet's favorite punchline, a cosmic comedy starring Katy Perry, Gayle King, and Lauren Sanchez, set not among the stars, but on the stage of media spectacle. And nobody laughed harder than Joe Rogan. The flight, conducted by Blue Origin, was billed as historic, the first all-female civilian crew sent into space. Except, as Joe Rogan and the internet were quick to point out, it wasn't quite what it seemed. There was no piloting, no scientific mission, no risk. The spacecraft was entirely remote-controlled from Earth. The passengers weren't astronauts. They were VIPs on a luxury thrill ride, carefully selected more for their fame and influence than their training or qualifications. When Katy Perry returned to Earth after her 10-minute trip to the edge of space, she dropped to her knees and kissed the ground like she had survived a harrowing return from Mars. She whispered about feeling super connected to love, and described the experience in spiritual tones, as though she had just meditated on a mountaintop for a week. Gayle King cried. Lauren Sanchez called it soul-changing. Oprah, watching from afar, reportedly wept at the sight of women lifting into the cosmos. The language was lofty, poetic, and, to many, completely detached from reality. Rogan couldn't help himself. On his podcast, he tore through the whole production. He mocked Katy's Earth kiss, her philosophical soundbites, and the sheer audacity of calling the trip making space for women. They were up there 10 minutes, he laughed. That's not space exploration. That's a rich person roller coaster. His co-hosts joined in, quipping that they've driven farther than the 62 miles Blue Origin reached. And the internet agreed, roasting the mission like it was a lost sketch from Saturday Night Live. The tone of the flight's coverage felt like satire before Rogan even stepped in. Katy Perry described floating in zero gravity as transformative. She sang, "What a wonderful world," while drifting above the Earth. She spoke of flowers, her daughter, and her connection to Mother Earth. She said she brought a daisy aboard to symbolize love and God's laughter. What she didn't bring, as Rogan joked, was any sense of restraint. The entire spectacle, from the custom flight suits to the tearful post-landing interviews, felt more like a televised awards show than a serious space mission. And it wasn't just Rogan calling it out. Social media lit up with parodies and mockery. Olivia Wilde reposted Katy's dirt kiss with the caption, "Just like Apollo 13. Amy Schumer claimed she was invited last minute and brought snacks. Even Martha Stewart chimed in, posting footage of her own zero-gravity experience with a subtle jab at the faux profundity of the Blue Origin launch. These weren't angry trolls or anti-feminist critics. They were fellow celebrities, raising eyebrows at the performative nature of the event. Gayle King wasn't having it. As the memes rolled in, she fired back on social media, insisting the mission was deeply meaningful and spiritual. "You belong in space," she told her followers. But the more she tried to steer the narrative toward empowerment, the more critics pushed back. Because while symbolism can be powerful, the symbolism here felt hollow, like a Hallmark card launched into orbit. Rogan called it what many were already thinking. It wasn't a space mission. It was a PR campaign. Real astronauts don't spend 48 hours in training. They don't exit the spacecraft with pre-written inspirational quotes. They don't float in orbit for less time than it takes to microwave a frozen dinner and call it a breakthrough for humanity. They train for years, live in isolation, run scientific experiments, and risk their lives. And they do it all with far less media fanfare than the women on this flight received for a glorified selfie session. Even the press coverage itself became part of the joke. Every moment of the launch and return was captured in crystal-clear footage, edited with sweeping music, and blasted across social platforms. Hashtags like, "We made space," and "We weren't taking up space, we were making space," trended briefly before being consumed by meme culture. Katy Perry's quotes were repurposed with absurdist humor, layered over images of celebrities in designer spacesuits striking poses mid-flight. And the absurdity didn't stop there. In post-flight interviews, the women doubled down on the emotional significance of the trip. Gayle King said she hoped the journey would inspire others to see the unity modeled by the crew. Lauren Sanchez said she had to go to space to heal. Katy talked about never being the same again. But instead of rallying inspiration, these moments sparked confusion and even resentment among viewers who felt the symbolism had eclipsed any meaningful substance. Joe Rogan hit the hardest when he said, "This wasn't progress. It was performance." And that line echoed across comment sections. For an audience growing increasingly tired of celebrity culture, especially when paired with billionaire excess, the sight of ultra-famous people floating in space, then returning to declare themselves pioneers, was too much to stomach. While the rest of the world faces inflation, housing crises, and social division, the richest people's wives are holding daisies and whispering about healing in orbit. The most biting part of Rogan's critique? The notion that these women are now considered astronauts. He joked that if singing in zero gravity for 10 minutes qualifies someone for that title, we should start handing out NASA badges at Disneyland. And the crowd loved it. For every person defending the mission's intent, there were thousands more laughing along. To be clear, no one is mocking the idea of women in space. Women have long been pioneers in science, aviation, and exploration. But this wasn't about pioneering, it was about posturing. It wasn't the first woman to orbit the Earth, the first woman to walk in space, or the first woman to command the International Space Station. It was a handful of celebrities on a pre-scripted journey, filmed from every angle, posted with hashtags, and packaged for the internet. The contrast between this and real space missions was stark. While Perry, King, and Sanchez floated briefly, the real women of NASA continued their quiet work, studying the cosmos, repairing satellites, and pushing humanity's boundaries with no fanfare. No viral reels. No branded jackets. Just grit, science, and history. This mission may have been launched from Earth, but it crash-landed in the court of public opinion. The attempt to blend feminism, celebrity, and space tourism didn't resonate the way it was intended. Instead of unity, it sparked division. Instead of inspiration, it provoked mockery. And instead of history, it made headlines for all the wrong reasons. As Rogan said, space doesn't care about your brand. And history doesn't remember selfies. In a world where billionaires can buy rockets and influencers can float in zero gravity, it's getting harder to tell the difference between achievement and attention-seeking. The line between genuine progress and PR spectacle is thinner than ever. So the next time someone claims they're breaking barriers by hopping on a rocket, take a step back. Look past the press release. Ask what really happened. Did they push science forward? Or did they just take a picture and call it a revolution? Because up there, in the silence of space, it's not about hashtags or headlines. It's about discovery. And until we start treating it that way again, no amount of daisies or designer spacesuits will make it meaningful. Stay grounded. And if you want more celebrity chaos, culture commentary, and media meltdowns, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because in a world where influencers are astronauts, it helps to have someone call it what it really is.